Left my girlfriend at home with my gay friend and set up a camera. This is what happened. I met Mark in our first year of college. He was a quiet one in a room full of loud personalities. While the rest of us bragged about hookups or fumbled through failed flirtations, Mark just listened. He never chimed in, never boasted. When someone asked if he was seeing anyone, he gave a simple shrug and said, "I'm not really into all that." Naturally, people made assumptions. Some thought he was gay. Some thought he was brokenhearted. But Mark always gave the same answer, calm, measured, and consistent. "I'm just not interested. Never have been." He didn't say it with bitterness. There was no trauma laced in his voice. It wasn't shame or confusion. It sounded like a fact, like he'd made peace with it a long time ago. So we stopped asking. He became the asexual friend, the guy you could trust with anything. Someone who wouldn't flirt with your girlfriend, wouldn't cross a line, wouldn't complicate things. In a way, it made him feel safe, predictable, unthreatening. And I liked that about him. Years passed. We stayed close. After college, I moved in with my girlfriend, Alyssa. We'd been together for almost 2 years by then. She was smart, independent, and had this kind of grounded energy that kept me balanced. Mark came by often. Sometimes he'd crash on our couch after game night, or help me with stuff around the house. Alyssa liked him, said he was easy to talk to, thoughtful, the kind of guy who doesn't have an angle, she once told me. I agreed. Hell, sometimes I'd leave him alone in the apartment while I ran errands or stepped out for a walk. Never once did it cross my mind to worry, because Mark wasn't that guy. He didn't want what I had. He didn't want any of it. That's what I believed. That's what he told me. Looking back now, I wonder how many times I ignored the signs. Like the way Mark started coming over more often than usual, or the little jokes he'd make that only Alyssa seemed to laugh at, or how she started wearing perfume, even when we were just lounging around the house, but only on the days Mark came by. But when you trust someone, you don't see the cracks. You only see the picture you've already painted. I remember one particular night. We were all sitting in the living room, half watching a documentary about deep-sea creatures, half talking about random stuff. Alyssa got up to grab some snacks, and Mark leaned over to me. "She's really amazing," he said. It caught me off guard. Compliments weren't his style. "Yeah," I replied, smiling. She makes you better," he added, almost too quietly. At the time, I took it as a genuine sentiment, maybe even a compliment to me. Somehow, but now, I think it was something else. Something closer to longing, or guilt. He never dated, never brought anyone around, never even mentioned crushes or romantic feelings. He was a blank slate, and I filled in the rest for him. Safe, trustworthy, uninterested. That's what I told myself. For years. But now I know better. And it all started with something small. Something stupid. Something I almost ignored. A few things went missing from my front yard. Nothing major. Just little things, a garden tool, a package, a foldable chair I kept near the porch. I chalked it up to neighborhood kids or someone messing around. But something didn't sit right. It was too random, too quiet. So I installed a security camera. I wasn't looking for secrets. I just wanted to catch a petty thief. Turns out, I was about to catch something else entirely. 3 years. That's how long Alyssa and I shared a life under one roof. 3 years of splitting bills, arguing over what to cook, taking turns with the laundry, and collapsing into bed after long days like we were two puzzle pieces that finally fit. It wasn't fireworks every day, but it was real. We had a rhythm, a routine, a kind of quiet domestic intimacy that made it easy to believe we were solid. And for most of that time, I truly thought we were. We moved into the house after dating for about 1.5 years. It wasn't anything fancy. 2 bedrooms, creaky floors, tiny backyard. But it was ours. We painted the walls together, bought mismatched furniture from Craigslist, and argued over which plans could survive our neglect. She made it feel like home. She always had that touch, knew how to make a space breathe, and I just tried to keep it steady. Mark was around a lot. At first, it made sense. We were close. He didn't have many people. No siblings. His parents lived in another state, and he was always drifting, coming by for dinner, helping me build shelves. Sometimes just sitting quietly on the porch while I grilled something. Alyssa liked having him around. She said he brought calm into the house. Funny thing was, I agreed. I never once thought of him as a threat. That's how far the illusion had sunk in. There were nights I'd get home late from work and find them watching TV together, sitting just far enough apart to look innocent, but close enough that now, in hindsight, something feels off. They laughed a little too hard at each other's jokes, shared glances a little too long, paused the show when I walked in, as if the spell had broken. But I never questioned it, because trust makes you blind in the most polite way. And I prided myself on being the kind of man who trusted. No jealousy, no possessiveness, no insecurity. I thought that made me stronger. Turns out, it just made me easier to fool. One Saturday, I remember Alyssa saying, "You should go have a guys' night. You haven't seen the crew in ages. I'll be fine here." Mark was already over. I think they were cooking something, laughing in the kitchen, the smell of garlic and butter in the air. I looked at them and smiled. Two people I loved. What could go wrong? I left, came back a few hours later. Nothing seemed out of place. They were on the couch, a movie playing, a bowl of half-eaten popcorn between them. Alyssa was curled up under a blanket. Mark looked half asleep. "Everything okay?" I asked, kicking off my shoes. They both nodded. And that was that. But now I look back at that night like at a scene from a film where you already know the twist. And suddenly everything feels different. She used to say things like, "Mark's so easy to talk to. You should be more like him, calm, quiet, present." And I'd laugh, tease her about having a crush on my best friend. She'd roll her eyes. "You're so dramatic." But I was joking. She wasn't. We had a stable life. We talked about getting a dog, maybe buying a bigger place in a few years. I thought we were building something. But now I realize I was building alone. She was somewhere else entirely, somewhere I couldn't reach. And all this time, the one person I trusted most, the one I thought couldn't betray me, was standing right beside her, not looking at me, looking through me. I don't know when it started. I don't know who kissed who first, who leaned in, who lied louder. It was just, but I know one thing. They were old hammer, a cheap garden lamp, and I was the last one to see it. I left near the porch. I didn't think much of it. The neighborhood was quiet, sure, but not immune to the occasional idiot who thinks stealing plastic furniture is some kind of win. I told Alyssa about it. She shrugged. "Maybe you left it at your buddy's place. You always bring stuff around when you help people out." That was fair. I did. So I brushed it off. But then more things disappeared. A package I was expecting never arrived. A pair of gloves I kept in the tool shed. The extension cord I knew I'd coiled on the back hook. And that's when the unease started to crawl in. I'm not paranoid by nature. But there's something about your own home, your space, being disturbed that touches a nerve you don't realize you have until it's yanked. It wasn't about the value of what was missing. It was the principle. So I bought a camera. Nothing fancy. Just a basic motion-triggered outdoor cam I could sync to my phone. Took me half an hour to set up. I mounted it above the back door, angled toward the yard and porch. Didn't even tell Alyssa. Not because I suspected her, but because I didn't want her to worry. Funny, right? Try and protect someone who was already protecting a secret from me. The first few days, nothing. The app sent me false alerts, bugs, neighborhood cats, the occasional leaf in motion. But then, one evening, I checked the playback out of curiosity, and that's when I saw it. It was about 10:30 p.m. I wasn't home. I had gone to grab a drink with an old co-worker. The footage showed Alyssa stepping out the back door barefoot, holding 2 glasses. She was followed by Mark. They sat together on the porch steps, lit dimly by the motion-activated light. They were talking. I couldn't hear them. There was no sound, but their body language said enough. They weren't sitting far apart, like I'd always seen. They weren't acting like brother and sister. There was no hesitation in their closeness. Mark leaned in, said something. She laughed. That specific laugh I used to think was mine. Then she leaned her head against his shoulder. He didn't pull away. She didn't move. They just sat like that for a while. Like it was normal. Like I didn't exist. I must have watched that clip 10 times. Not because I didn't believe what I was seeing, but because I needed to be sure I wasn't misreading it. I needed that image to change. It didn't. They eventually stood up. Mark set one of the glasses down. Alyssa hugged him. Not a quick, side-shoulder friend hug. Not a goodbye. A full, long, hands wrapped around each other hug. She closed her eyes. He smiled into her hair. And they stood like that for a few seconds too long. Then the feed ended. I sat in the dark, holding my phone, screen still glowing in my hand, my mouth dry, my brain spinning. This wasn't proof, not yet, but it was a beginning. The first tear in the fabric I had wrapped my whole life in. And once you see that tear, you can't unsee it. I didn't confront them. Not yet. Instead, I went to the store the next morning and bought something else. A small indoor camera, disguised as a charging dock. I installed it in the living room, right across from the couch, right where they always sat when I wasn't around. I didn't rush to watch the footage. It sat there on my phone for nearly 2 days, untouched, like some radioactive file I was afraid to open, because once I saw it, I couldn't unsee it. And part of me, the weaker part, still clung to the hope that maybe I was wrong, that maybe I'd misread the porch hug, that maybe, just maybe, they were still who I believed they were. But truth doesn't wait forever. It always finds a way in. And on the third night, just after midnight, I finally pressed play. The camera was well placed, right inside the living room, hidden in plain sight. It had motion activation audio, and it recorded everything directly to a secure cloud folder. I skimmed past hours of silence, empty frames, and me moving around like a ghost who still thought he had a home. Then I saw it. Friday, 6:12 p.m. I was at the gym. They were on the couch. At first, it looked harmless, casual. Alyssa on one side, Mark on the other. A movie playing. The light from the screen flickering across their faces. But then it changed. Alyssa shifted closer, barely noticeable at first. Then her legs tucked under her, body leaning toward him. Her hand reached out, fingers grazing his forearm. He didn't flinch. Instead, he turned to her, said something. I couldn't hear it, but whatever was made her laugh. She rested her head on his shoulder. He put his arm around her. And that's when the world in my chest began to crack. The moment stretched. Her hand slipped under his shirt, casually, like it had done that before. He kissed the top of her head, then her forehead, then her lips. And she didn't pull away. She leaned in, eyes closed, mouth open. My hand tightened around the phone. My breath caught in my throat. This was it. This was betrayal in HD. There was no ambiguity, no excuses, no possible explanation that could twist this into innocence. It wasn't just emotional. It wasn't a moment of weakness. It was deliberate, familiar, rehearsed. She climbed into his lap. They kissed like they forgot where they were. And I just sat there, frozen, watching the people I trusted most become strangers right in my living room, in my house, on my couch. They didn't go all the way, not on camera, anyway. But it didn't matter. The line had been crossed a long time ago. This was just confirmation. Final, brutal, unfiltered. I paused the video, stared at the frame. Her face was tilted up, smiling. His hand was on her back. I had seen them in this exact position before, hundreds of times, but never like this, never as enemies. I sat in the dark for hours after that. No tears, no shouting, just silence. That same eerie silence that comes after a car crash, when the airbags have deployed and everything's still, but you know damage has already been done. You just haven't felt it yet. I didn't know what I was going to do next, but one thing was clear. This wasn't just about Alyssa. This was about Mark too, the friend who told me he didn't want anyone, The man who sat across from me for 5 years. I didn't say anything that
pretending
night.
to be harmless.
Didn't wake her up while slowly
Didn't
carving a
storm
hole
into
in
the
the
living
foundation
room.
of my life. I just watched her sleep next to me like nothing had changed, like she wasn't already living in two separate realities, one with me and one with him. I wondered if she dreamed about him, if she whispered his name in her head, while curled up against my chest. It made me sick. The next morning, I made coffee. She came into the kitchen wearing one of my shirts, something that used to make me feel warm, safe. Now it felt like mockery. She smiled, kissed my cheek. I didn't flinch. Not yet. I needed the moment. I needed her to lie one more time. "You doing anything today?" she asked. "Not really," I said, thinking of staying in. She nodded, sipping from her mug. "Maybe we can go to the movies later?" I looked at her, her eyes, her mouth, the casual comfort in her movements, the way she leaned against the counter like nothing in the world was wrong. It took everything in me not to show my hand. But I waited. That afternoon, when she was sitting on the couch scrolling through her phone, I walked in, phone in hand. No anger, just silence. She looked up. "What's up?" I sat across from her, took a breath, and tapped play. The clip was only 2 minutes, but by the time it ended, the color had drained from her face. She didn't speak right away, just stare at the phone screen, like it might disappear if she looked long enough. Then finally, softly, "Where did you get that?" I looked at her, calmly, clearly. "Does it matter?" She opened her mouth, closed it again, then tried. It wasn't what it looked like. I actually laughed. "Short, cold. You're seriously going to start with that?" She looked down, swallowed. I didn't mean for it to happen. "No," I said, because it looked pretty mutual. She was quiet, and that was her first honest moment. I stood up, walked to the window, hands in my pockets to stop them from shaking. "You lied to me," I said. "Every day." "For how long?" She didn't answer. I turned back to her. Was it the first time on that video? Or just the first time I caught it? Tears welled in her eyes. "I don't know." That answer told me everything. "You could have told me," I said. She shook her head. "I didn't want to lose you. You lost me the second you chose him." Her voice cracked. "I didn't choose him." "Yes, you did. Every time I left the house. Every time you smiled at me while hiding this. Every single time." Then came the silence, the thick, unbearable kind. She sat there, small, shaking, saying nothing. And for once, I didn't want to fix it. I didn't want to hold her or yell or demand an explanation. I just wanted her to feel it, to sit in the wreckage she helped create. I walked to the bedroom, came back with a small duffel bag, tossed it on the floor in front of her. "You're going to pack some things," I said. "Right now?" "Right now." She stared at me, horrified. "Where am I supposed to go?" "Not here." She didn't move, so I walked over, held out the bag. "I'm not going to scream," I said. "I'm not going to call you names. But you can't stay here." Still nothing. So I looked her in the eye and said the only thing that mattered. "I saw what you are. I can't unsee it." And that broke her. He texted me the next day. "Can we talk?" I stared at the screen for a while, not out of hesitation, out of disbelief. He wanted to talk now? After everything? After 5 years of standing beside me, smiling, nodding, playing the role of the safe, harmless friend? Now he wanted to talk? I didn't answer. But 2 hours later, he showed up anyway. I opened the door, and there he was. Mark. Same as always. Same quiet eyes. Same neutral expression. Except now I saw it. Not innocence. Not awkwardness. Just a man who had been pretending for far too long. He opened with a breath. "I know I messed up." I stepped aside, letting him in, not as a friend, as a witness. He stood in the hallway like he didn't belong anymore. Because he didn't. He looked around like everything was foreign to him now. Because it was. "I didn't plan it," he said quietly. "I swear it just happened." "Cut the script," I said, folding my arms. "We're past that." He looked down, then back at me. She kissed me first. I raised an eyebrow. And you just forgot who she was? Who I was? His jaw tightened. I didn't mean to betray you. Then why did you? The words hung in the air. Real. Raw. I walked closer, looked him dead in the eyes. You told me you weren't into girls. He didn't blink. I wasn't. I laughed, sharp, humorless. And what? She changed that. I don't know, he said. It was never about gender. I just never felt that way about anyone. Not until her. Silence. Heavy. Ugly. I took a deep breath. Why did you lie to me for 5 years? He looked pained. Because it was easier. Easier than what? Easier than admitting I didn't know who I was. Easier than explaining something I didn't understand. I stared at him. And easier than telling your best friend you wanted the one thing you promised was safe? His eyes dropped again. And that silence? That was the truth. I walked away. I couldn't even look at him. My chest burned, not with rage, with disappointment. Worse than betrayal is realizing you never really knew someone. Worse than lies is realizing they were told with a straight face. For years. He finally said, I didn't mean to fall for her. I turned to him. You didn't just fall, Mark. You landed on me. He tried to speak. I raised a hand. No more. He stood there for a second longer, then nodded. I get it. No, you don't. I said, you really don't. He left without another word. No hug, no tears, no fake apology, just the soft click of the door. And then quiet, real quiet, the kind that doesn't ache, the kind that makes room for something better. She stood by the door, bag in hand, red-eyed, silent. I didn't say anything at first. I just watched her, this person I had once called home, slowly zip up the last remnants of the life we shared. There was no yelling, no final plea, no dramatic scene. It was already over. Words wouldn't bring back what had died between us. And truthfully, I didn't want them to. I don't know where I'm going, she said finally. That's not my problem anymore. Her mouth twitched, a tiny flinch, like she expected me to offer a cushion. I didn't. You chose him. I added. She nodded. I didn't think it would go this far. None of you ever do. She looked around the apartment one last time, like it might somehow forgive her. I opened the door. She stepped out, turned. I'm sorry, she whispered. I nodded once, not as forgiveness, as closure. Then I shut the door behind her and locked it. I didn't cry. I didn't collapse. I just stood there in the hallway, breathing in the quiet like it was the first clean air I'd had in weeks. I expected to feel empty, but I didn't. I felt clear, like the fog had finally lifted. Mark tried calling that night. Twice. I didn't pick up. The next day, a message. I didn't mean to ruin everything. I miss you, man. I stared at it. And then I did something I should have done years ago. I blocked his number, deleted his contact, removed every photo, every trace of him from my phone. Not in anger, in survival. Because there's no healing with rot in the foundation. And Mark, he was the rot. People like him, like them, don't think they'll get caught. They build their lives on your trust. They bank on your loyalty. They smile in your face while stealing from your back pocket. Not because they enjoy the betrayal, but because they've convinced themselves it's not betrayal at all. Just feelings. Just chemistry. Just a mistake. But betrayal is never an accident. It's a decision. A slow, selfish decision that grows in the dark, watered by silence, protected by proximity. And the only way to kill it is to shine a light. So I cleaned the apartment, top to bottom, washed every sheet, changed the locks, took down the framed photo that used to hang by the hallway, the one with the three of us laughing, arms linked, like we were family. Funny how liars always look the happiest in pictures. I didn't cry when I threw it out. I didn't feel anything at all. For the first time in a long time, the silence in the apartment wasn't heavy. It wasn't hiding. I wasn't planning on reaching out. It was mine. At first, I told myself it wasn't my place, that it was none of my business, that I should just clean up my own life and let the rest fall where it may. But then I thought about him. Ethan, Mark's boyfriend. The one I'd seen twice briefly, at a party and once on Mark's birthday. Quiet but kind, always in Mark's shadow. The one who probably believed every word Mark ever told him, the same way I had. And I realized he deserved to know, not for drama, not for revenge, just truth. It wasn't hard to find his number. I still had it saved from an old group chat Mark once made. The two of them were supposed to come to dinner, but Ethan canceled last minute. I never deleted the thread. I stared at it for a while. Then I sent one simple message. Hey, this is going to be strange, but I need to tell you something important about Mark. He replied 5 minutes later. Who is this? It's my name. His friend. Or I used to be. Oh, what's going on? I asked if we could talk in person. He said okay. We met the next day at a small cafe near his apartment. He arrived early. Nervous. Eyes scanning me like I was about to drop a bomb. And I was, but gently. We sat down. He didn't order anything. I didn't waste time. I'm not going to stretch this out, I said. Mark cheated on you. He blinked, didn't react, didn't flinch. Are you sure? I nodded slowly. With my girlfriend. Silence. Just a clinking of cutlery in the background. A soft jazz song playing over the cafe speakers. He stared at the table. How do you know? I saw it, I said, with my own eyes, on camera. He looked up, and I saw it hit, not all at once, but like a slow wave rolling over a sandcastle, layer by layer, dismantling the image he'd built. I had a feeling, he whispered, but I didn't think it was with you. You're a girl. Neither did I said. We sat there, quietly holding what had just been broken. He asked to see the clip. I offered to send it. He declined. I don't need to watch it, he said. I believe you. And those words, they stung more than I expected, because I had needed proof to believe it. He didn't. Maybe he already knew. Maybe, deep down, we both had. I'm sorry, I said, and I meant it. He nodded. I'm not mad at you. He looked out the window for a while, then back at me. Thanks for telling me. Not everyone would. We didn't shake hands. Didn't exchange promises to stay in touch. We just parted ways like people who had each held a piece of the same rotten truth. And finally let it go. That night, I got one last text from Mark. You told him? I didn't respond. I just deleted the message. And with it, deleted everything left between us. The silence after everything unraveled was deep, not just in my apartment. In them, they disappeared. Both of them. Alyssa moved out quietly. No forwarding address. No final speech. Just gone. Mark stopped showing up online. No posts. No replies. No mutual invitations. At first, I didn't think much of it. I was too busy picking up the pieces of my own piece. But then I started hearing things. A friend from work, someone who didn't know the full story, mentioned running into Alyssa at a grocery store. She looked wrecked, he said, like she hadn't slept in a week. Apparently, she was staying with someone temporarily, sleeping on a couch. No job, no direction. And Mark? He'd moved out of Ethan's place. That much I expected, but I didn't expect what came next. Ethan had kicked him out the same day I told him, threw his stuff out onto the curb, changed the locks, and went completely no contact. Mark had nowhere to go. He tried to stay with a friend, someone mutual, someone neutral, but no one wanted to be in the middle. He tried messaging me again. I never answered. Eventually, he stopped trying. A week later, someone sent me a screenshot. It was Alyssa and Mark, together, sitting on a bench near a bus stop, bags at their feet, not holding hands, not smiling, just sitting, like two people who had finally realized the gravity of what they'd done. No more pretending, no more secret texts, no more stolen glances, just consequences. They weren't building a life together. They were sitting in the ruins of one they'd helped destroy. I didn't feel victorious. I didn't feel anything, really, just confirmation that what I'd walked away from was no longer disguised as something worth saving, that the illusion had finally burned itself out. Some mutual friends asked if I wanted to talk it out. if I might ever forgive them. Forgive? Forgiveness isn't a bandage for people who didn't ask for it. It's a bridge. And they both lit the bridge on fire and danced in the glow. There was no going back. Not for them. Not for me. Sometimes people lose everything because they risked it for something stupid. Sometimes they lose everything because they thought they'd never get caught. Not in the store. And sometimes, not by accident, they lose everything because they deserve to be part of. They vanished, and I let them. At first, I thought there might be a moment. Some unexpected run-in at the corner cafe. A silent stare across the aisle in a pharmacy. That awkward, breathless second where the past walks straight into your present. But it never came. Maybe they avoided me. Maybe the universe spared us both. Maybe they understood that some things can't be undone and chose to disappear before I had to remind them. Either way, I was grateful. I rebuilt slowly, one routine at a time. Started waking up earlier, cooking more, reading again, calling old friends I hadn't spoken to in years, the ones I had subconsciously pushed away while drowning in that fake stability. I redecorated the apartment. New sheets, new art. I even bought a new couch. Not because I needed it, because I needed that one gone. Gone like the hands that touched it behind my back. Gone like the words that meant nothing. Gone like them. The camera? I kept it for a while. Not out of fear, out of memory. As a reminder that no matter how well you think you know someone, trust is earned in actions, not history. But one day I unplugged it, packed it away. Not because I stopped caring, but because I no longer needed proof. Some nights, I still hear echoes, faint flashes of laughter that don't belong to this version of my life anymore. But they don't hurt. They pass through me like air through open windows. And I let them go, loved in return overnight. It didn't come charging in with flowers or fireworks. It came slowly, in the form of peace, in the form of quiet days that didn't feel hollow, in the comfort of my own presence. In the realization that I didn't need anyone to complete me, only someone who wouldn't betray me when I turned my back. But until then, I was enough, more than enough. Sometimes, people ask me what happened to them. I don't answer, not because I'm bitter, because it doesn't matter. I lived through it, and that's all the story I need to carry. They lost me. I didn't lose anything worth keeping, and that's the ending.